Do you have seasonal allergies? Where you live can play a role in your allergy management, but that's not all. We'll be talking about AAFA's 2026 Allergy Capitals report and a breaking development that completely changed pollen seasons in an unexpected way. Hello and good afternoon. I'm Zulema Chavez, the host of this podcast. I'm joined by Hannah Jaffee, Director of Research for AAFA, and Dr. Neeta Ogden. Dr. Ogden is a board certified allergist and immunology specialist. Hannah, let's start with what people want to know the most. What are the top 10 allergy capitals for 2026?
So, our top allergy capital for 2026 is Boise, Idaho. This is the first year that Boise takes the number one position, and it's followed by San Diego, California at number two. This is also the first time that San Diego has been ranked so high. Third is Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is a familiar face at the top 10 of this list. Number four is Provo, Utah. Five is Rochester, New York. Number six is Wichita, Kansas, which dropped down from number one last year. Number seven is Raleigh, North Carolina, landing at the same position as last year. And then finally, rounding out the top 10, at number 8, we have Ogden, Utah. 9 is Spokane, Washington. And 10 is Greenville, South Carolina.
Thanks, Hannah, for sharing that. And let's back up a little bit. Tell us more about AAFA's Allergy Capitals report.
Yeah, so every year in the springtime, AFA releases our Allergy Capitals report. And what this report is we look at the 100 largest metropolitan areas within the lower 48, and we rank them based on different factors that might make it more challenging to live with seasonal allergies. So the three factors that we look at for the report are daily mean pollen count for tree, grass, and wheat pollen. We look at over-the-counter allergy medicine use. And the last factor that we look at is the availability of allergy specialists in the area. So each city in the report gets a score for each of these factors, and then we combine all those scores into one final score that goes into the ranking.
And as you mentioned earlier, when you were listing the allergy capitals, this year's top cities are in places of the United States we usually don't see in the top 20 allergy capitals. And in the past, the top cities were mostly in South and Northeast. And this is big news. So, what changed?
Yes, yeah, there are quite a few number of newcomers to the 2026 Allergy Capitals report. There are a few different reasons to why this might be, but a few of these cities were really particularly hit hard by pollen this last year. And one of the possible reasons for that is a series of atmospheric rivers that hit the West. So, what atmospheric rivers are almost like rivers in the sky. These are long strands of water vapor that carry this water vapor from warm parts over the ocean over to land. And then when they hit land, they can create a lot of rain, warmer temperatures, and a lot of different kind of seasonal changes. They mainly impacted California and the Pacific Northwest, but some of them did make their way further inland. And the extra rain and the warmer weather caused by these atmospheric rivers naturally support plant growth and pollen production. Plants love wet, warm weather. So this really created this pollen explosion in the West. So you mentioned we typically see a lot of the top 10 allergy capitals in the Southeast. But if you laid out all the cities on the top 20 this year, they're kind of all over the place, including many in the West. So you have a lot of more cities in the West and other parts of the area hitting the top 20 for the first time. And for the people who do live in those areas who do have seasonal allergies, they might be feeling those impacts even more.
Let's bring in an allergist perspective. Joining us now is Dr. Neeta Ogden. Dr. Ogden is a board certified allergist and immunology specialist and the director of the Allergy, Asthma, and Sinus Center in Edison, New Jersey. Welcome, Dr. Ogden.
Thank you so much for having me.
Dr. Ogden, what do the findings of this year's Allergy Capitals report mean for people in areas who usually don't see higher pollen counts? What kind of impacts might they see?
So I think this is such an important point to make as the capitals list is being released and how these people might become more aware if they're experiencing those intense symptoms. But that's basically what they might see. Increased intensity. People might experience allergy symptoms for the first time ever. Or if they have existing allergies, they may experience more intense symptoms. They also may notice that their allergy symptoms are starting earlier and lasting longer. So these types of changes are very likely to occur for people who are living in these capitals that have these explosive pollen counts.
And how can someone manage a pollen allergy?
Yes, and I think this is why it's so important that we have the capitals report because it really gives you a sort of local geographic basis by which to understand your allergies. So one of the first things I often suggest is for people to know their allergies. Look at your zip code, follow pollen counts, track where your city is in the season, and then also know your allergies. Do you have tree allergies, grass allergies, both? You can do this by getting allergy tested. Once you've established what you're allergic to, you want to avoid triggers. Maybe take steps not to spend so much time outside on high pollen count days. And finally, you want to really master your medications by checking in with a board certified allergist and developing a plan. And that can include things from nasal saline rinses, which are available over the counter, or again, over the counter allergy medications like antihistamines, such as Zyrtec or Allegra. These are brands that you frequently see over the counter. Generics are also available. There are also nasal sprays, intranasal corticosteroids, intranasal antihistamine sprays, as well as eye drops. If you have asthma, allergic asthma associated with your allergies, you're going to again want to see a physician to help you treat that with inhalers, is the most common thing that we're using for allergic asthma. And finally, you may be a candidate if your symptoms are quite severe or if it's right for you. For something called allergen immunotherapy, also known as allergy shots, which can have more long-term effects on people's allergies.
Those are great tips, and thank you for explaining all of the different treatment options. And as you said, it's so important to get a diagnosis so you can get appropriate treatment plan, and you could work on managing your symptoms effectively where you are.
Yes, exactly. And I think that that's the biggest thing is to not get caught off guard, to have a plan in place that you can stick to. That kind of routine will just set you up so much better for allergy season.
Absolutely. And more than 82 million people in the United States have seasonal allergic rhinitis or hay fever, as many call it. And that's a lot of people. What are some of the lifetime impacts of seasonal allergies?
I think it's really important to know that allergies are really not something that you outgrow. So you can kind of expect them to be chronic and wax and wane throughout life. In fact, a recent study showed that 3 in 4 children who had allergies around the ages of 2 to 4, 4 to 8, continue to have allergies through age 24. So this is a persistent entity and one that will require managing throughout life. And the things that you want to think about is that their long-term sequelae, if allergies get worse or not treated properly, this can impact your quality of life. One of the biggest things we see is sleep being affected by allergies because allergies can affect your airway. And so when you're sleeping, this can lead to snoring or worsening sleep apnea symptoms, not getting a restful night of sleep. And how does that impact your daily life then? This can lead to also missed days of school and work if you're sick due to your allergies. So those are things to definitely think about. Also, mental well-being. If you're suffering from allergies and you're not getting adequate rest and sleep, and you can't do your usual activities such as exercise, this can lead to worsening mental health symptoms like depression and feeling more anxious. So it does create a snowball effect. If allergies get worse and sort of remain untreated, it can just impact your life in so many more ways than you imagined.
Yeah, and this is something I've heard myself where people are very frustrated with trying different treatments or different medicines. It's just not working or they're not getting relief. And then sometimes, as a last resort, they'll bring up the idea of moving. And so, should someone use this report to find places to move to prevent seasonal allergies?
No, I don't think so, because I think that the United States in general is seeing a rise in allergies due to exactly what Hannah was talking about, climate change. So if you don't have allergies in another area, you may actually end up developing them. Pollen is sort of ubiquitous at this point. I think the more important thing to do is to address your allergies in a very productive way by recognizing that you have them, things that we've mentioned before, getting tested, and creating a proper treatment plan with your healthcare provider.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ogden. Hannah, mold is another common allergen that can affect people seasonally. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of like pollen, mold really tends to thrive in these warm, wet environments. And a lot of the times, spikes in mold coincide with allergy seasons. And in some places, mold really persists year round. So, when we're looking at the Allergy Capitals report, it was really important for us to talk more about mold allergy because a lot of the areas that have high mold counts might feel worse in terms of their allergy, even though they're technically lower on the list. So, really just wanted to share more about mold allergy and how that might be impacting people around the country.
And Dr. Ogden, in the context of this report, is outdoor mold or indoor mold more of a concern? Can you talk more about ways to manage a mold allergy?
Yeah, certainly. It's really, in terms of this seasonal report, an outdoor mold issue. But you're right in that this is somewhat of like a newer phenomenon going hand in hand with the spring allergy seasons, largely because of these pockets of great moisture that have erupted from these climate events, essentially. And so you do have to keep in mind, though, that outdoor mold can very quickly become an indoor mold problem as well, in terms of how you curate your house in dealing with the changes in pollen counts in the air. So these are important things to keep in mind. But outdoor mold is the real problem. And you're going to see a lot of overlapping symptoms. So nasal congestion, cough, things that you typically see with allergies in the spring. The only thing with mold is that it might be less itchiness and more of, like I said, nasal congestion, cough, sinus type of symptoms. However, I have seen people present with severe skin rashes due to outdoor mold exposures. So at this point, I feel like with allergies and seasonal allergies, everything's on the table. And with the mold allergies, you're going to see a lot of parallel symptoms. It's just important again to get tested and try to recognize if you have those mold allergies and symptoms.
Yeah, it's really good for people to be aware of what to expect over the next few months. If they're
Yeah,
seeing some of the symptoms that you mentioned, it's a great opportunity to speak with a doctor, potentially get some tested, and make sure that they're taking the proper precautions.
agree, definitely. And I think getting the Allergy Capitals report early is going to help people recognize that.
Definitely. And what is the key takeaway you would like someone with seasonal allergies to know about the Allergy Capitals report?
My takeaway is really plan early. So there's really nothing you can do wrong if you're acting early. The medications that we mentioned earlier, I really recommend starting those approximately 2 weeks before the season, especially if you know that you're an allergy sufferer. That means making an appointment with your healthcare provider now so that your medicine cabinet has things that aren't expired, and that you're also not navigating the completely overwhelming pharmacy aisles devoted to allergy at the last minute. This is one of the biggest things that is confusing to people. They don't know what to take. You can develop an efficient plan if you plan ahead.
Absolutely. And Hannah, how can people learn more about the 2026 Allergy Capitals report?
Yes, so allergycapitals.org is where you're going to want to go. Here you can find the full report, including the rankings for all 100 cities on the list. And the report and the website also include really helpful information about how to manage your seasonal allergies.
Yeah, we encourage our listeners to check that report out. There's a lot of really great information in there. And lastly, Dr. Ogden, Hannah, thank you so much for joining us today to discuss what a pollen allergy is, how to manage it, and AAFA's Allergy Capitals report.
Yeah, thank you.
You.
This podcast was made possible by Opella, makers of Allegra. We hope you found this episode of the AAFAnoon Chats podcast informative and actionable. Don't miss our future episodes. Remember to like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. This episode is produced independently by AAFA. The information presented in our podcast is educational and not intended to provide individual medical advice. Please talk with your healthcare provider for advice about your personal health. If you have questions or want someone to talk with about asthma or allergies, our Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America online community is always open. You can find it at aafa.org/join. Have a good afternoon, everyone.